Hello, welcome back. Day 40 of the daily vlogs has arrived. Look at that, 40 times you guys tuned in. No God Ray coming out of my wonderful little bottle today, but an interesting subject, something I feel has been getting a little bit of attention at the moment, and I feel like I just want to give my 2 cents on it, is esports degrees and why I probably wouldn't suggest you do them. So, Esports degrees have been starting to pop up all of a sudden. People are starting to see some traction in the esports space as if we haven't had traction for years and improving ourselves. But we've gotten enough growth that we start to attract the attention of the academic side of things. And honestly, I don't think it's something you should buy into at this stage. Unless, of course, you are like philanthropists, have loads of money, haven't got anything to do, and it doesn't matter if you spend 3 years of your life doing a degree that won't necessarily lead to work. You'll be fine anyway. Then go ahead and do it. Maybe like someone you like works on the degree as a lecturer, and you're a big fan of their work. But let's start off with the obvious. Esports is still growing. Esports is still nowhere near the size of traditional TV in terms of like the size of the studios, the foreigners. It is a very big market, don't get me wrong. But like it hasn't had that longevity established alongside it that really justifies the people to come in and teach it at the moment. So I think like one of the kind of hilarious classics is those who can't practice teach. And that can weigh in with some substance, right? Like you will have people who maybe had some success in esports 4 years ago or 5 years ago. They haven't really like done anything wow factor recently. That's not to say that you can't have people like that. It's more to say I consider them the outlier, not the norm. These people who are still currently successful and still like on, pioneers, shall we call them, in their fields and amazing what they do are rarer. As someone who done a degree uh, in game design, I can tell you this for a fact from a person who has been on a course, which there have been courses for X amounts extra years than there has for esports. I can honestly tell you hand on heart, these degrees carry a limited amount of value with them. It's more about how much you capitalize on them beyond the initial investment of money and time in the education system. Now, that's not to. I'm not harping on the people that taught me in game design or saying that they're bad or whatever. In fact, like I will go in a lot more detail in a future video about game design degrees specifically. But with esports degrees, it's this kind of case of like you get what you put in. And the problem with like the that whole idea is like people assume they can go on these degrees and it will just lead to a job in esports. That's not how it works. It was the same in game design, right? And I done plenty of projects in my spare time. It still didn't really like, just absolutely make me stand out from the pack. If anything, it made me look a little bit more awkward. Uh and this is even more true with esports because what it done in game design and game development is it made me a jack of all trades. Even though I specialized in programming, it made me seem like a guy who does everything, but he doesn't master it. A jack of all trades, master of none. That is a dangerous thing, I think, to be in esports right now. I think esports is starting to move very heavily past this. People juggle multiple roles, and we're getting to that stage where people have a job that they do, and they do it really well. They're really refined at it. And guess what? If you want to do that, if you want to be that, like that, you want to be the social media dude or you want to be the producer, you should take a specialist type degree. And what I mean by that, by comparison, I'm not saying specialist as in, oh yeah, I'm going to specialize in AI programming on this comp science. I'm talking about specialists within you're targeting a type of job you maybe want in the esports field, but you're actually leveraging getting there with a more traditional, shall we say, degree. Perfect example is things like computer science will allow you to be, the kind of go-to tech dude. It can also allow you to maybe slot in and do something a bit like what JJ does for the Dota scene, where you create these systems that get utilized by tournament organizers. And they'd be absolutely over the moon to have someone in-house who can do that, as well as do X because they partake in their spare time. And I'll get into that in a sec, because if we continue, we're talking what I do on camera, probably someone who does acting classes or is in the performance arts side of things would actually have a leg up over other people if they were trying to get into that work because they have a background skill they can associate with. I honestly don't know if I would have been able to come in the way I did in the Dota scene and have the success I did if it wasn't for the fact that I harnessed that skill of just being an ass on camera or whatever you want to refer to me as for like 2 years as a live streamer. I may not have much success there, but it's the fact that you even without consciously realizing are refining a brand. You're refining your art, your skill, and that really helped a lot for me. And journalism, communications, marketing, these type of degrees as well, like very obvious uses in social media, in sales, in esports, these type of roles that like if you actually like really want to move up in the esports world behind the scenes, eventually you have to understand how the economics work. Economy, economic studies would probably be more handy than going for an esports degree. Like, I think you show that you love esports. This is the thing. Like, people want to do these degrees. Like, oh, I love esports. The esports is amazing. You show that you love esports in your spare time activities and the things you do outside. So for me, when I done the game design degree, I was still making games in my spare time. I was still having my own mini projects. The problem for me, of course, is I loved playing and watching games just too much. And funny that I eventually found my way to this field courtesy of that. Otherwise, God knows what I'd be doing now. But that's the point, right? Like when you're forced to do something, or not forced, but like you are loosely confined to do something within the confinement of a classroom, it devalues your apparent love for it. That's not to say you don't love it. You could love it very much, but to the potential employer, the perspective is that, well, he done this in a classroom, right? Like it was his time investment, his money investment, investment type thing within those confines. Usually, we talk like people want to know about hobbies and things you do outside of your work because that can really help drive what your skills are and what you're harnessing outside of the work limitations. Um, and that's like that's that thing that I think people are maybe not looking at when they're considering these esports degrees is that most, like, don't get me wrong, there'll be quirky little things that those people can teach you. But let's say you went and done a journalism degree, and in your spare time you were a perfect example actually. In journalism degree, your spare time you're getting in contact with upcoming players, commentators, all these people working behind the scene in esports, and you're doing interviews with them, vlogs, that type of stuff, right? That helps you on the journalism front. But guess what that is also giving you? That's giving you contacts within the scene, within the esports scenes that you can leverage if you want to move directly into that scene later. And don't get flustered in this idea that because you do journalism, that means that's all you'll do in esports. Maybe you get in starting off as an esports journalist, but you develop skills there that maybe allow you to then become a producer, for example, or move across to sales. Like this is the thing that people seem to really struggle with is they perceive the career. I'm pretty sure I've used this before, but it's like it's my cheesy. It's so good. I have to. People perceive their career to be a straight line when in reality it's a curvy road. Right? Careers are very funky things. There are people, don't get me wrong, that have a traditional path where they get in their job and they stay in that type of job for years. People like a lawyer will come in and they'll work up through the chain within the law for many years and they will not change profession. But guess what? People who hop in and out of esports, they come in from different angles, they leave in different angles. For me, right? I was a game design student who became a SharePoint developer and then found myself randomly becoming an esports commentator, now esports host, like esports talent. What? How do you even get to that? And I would say like I could have leveraged my crossover much better. If I was being big brain, I would have kept brushing up more heavily on my computer science, like programming skills, and tried to be involved in something like what JJ is doing with Layoff, right? Because that would be a smart move. That would be me maximizing my skills. That's ways that you people watching this, if you're wondering why you're listening to this blabbering fool, it's because this blabbering fool in the esports space has managed to have some success, and he hasn't even optimally utilized his skills. I've utilized half of them because in my spare time I done loads of live streaming, like 8 hours a day, non-stop, ridiculous. Learn how to function on 3 hours of sleep, and that is it. But what I didn't leverage continually once I left my programming job was that programming skill, which I could now. If you come out of a comp science degree, you could be doing that. If you are doing performance arts, guess what? You could not only be good on-screen camera talent for esports scene, you could also be doing traditional acting, right? Like for movies or TV shows, you could actually be doing theatrical work. Like there's loads of ways that you can leverage that skill set and then cross it over when the time is right. So I guess my takeaway for you guys is don't look at me as a hypocrite, actually, step one, because I know I seem like a little bit of a hypocrite because I said I got a game design degree and I ended up here. But I say that I feel like to you guys, I'd say I set a lower barrier than what you can achieve. So what I would tell you is to if you really want to be involved in esports, figure out what is interesting to you and then cross relate it to a traditional degree. Because I can assure you, more and more people in the esports space are more interested in hiring people who bring a degree with them from, I want to call it a more respected, more like proven education than, oh, this guy went to an esports college or he got an esports degree. What does that even mean at that stage? What kind of value does that carry? I think when you've got these very young subjects, especially, unless you have like an outstanding lecturer, like let's say you got Red Eye to teach you for 3 years how to do hosting, unless you had something like that, it's very hard to put a weight, a value on those type of degrees compared to a computer science degree, which has some weight and length behind it, or an English degree where you can see that like, oh, this degree is proven to have X value because over many years it is refined. These esports degrees are way too young. So that's my advice to you guys. That's my opinion on that. Like, honestly, if you're thinking about getting involved in esports, do it right now. Look at your local scenes. Try and get involved, whether it's admin work, whether it's like on the production side, anything you think you can do to learn what you need to do in that space to succeed. Don't think that going on a course for 3 years, listening to someone who maybe was successful like 6 years ago, like they had that moment, but maybe it's past, and you don't know how to utilize what they're telling you necessarily. Like, get in the mud and get dirty. Like, get in esports right now if you want to be involved. Find a way to be involved. Don't spend 3 years learning stuff that might be useful for you, but chances are by the time you're going to start trying to apply them, those skills are outdated or that information is outdated. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you for tuning in again. Kind of proud to actually have got up to 40. I'm glad like I got to talk about it a little bit. I'd be interested to see what your opinions are on this. If anyone is on an esports degree already or considering going on one, let me know what you think down below. I always love to have a little bounce back and forth for you guys, give my feedback on the situation. And honestly, I respect your decision if you go and do an esports degree. Just know that, like, if you do, make sure it's the right, like, it really, really is the right thing for you. Because one, you might get, like, for one thing, you might get an esports ahead. But also, like, more importantly, don't just confine yourself to what the degree tells you to do. Like, find your passion, find what you want, and chase after it in your career. Because it's very rare that the the sun comes to you. All right, you got to build a rocket and go to the, don't go to the sun. You'll get vaporized. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more of these, and be sure to follow on the social media so you know when these are being popped up and thrown out in your face, where I tell you that you should definitely go and study general studies. Don't study general studies. I'm sorry, general studies. I can't.